tried to contact relevant parties. One or two kindly responded and said, well, not this week, we'll give a response a bit later on. But I think, you know, you have to be open and fair. And ultimately, you have to give the bookmakers every right to come on. Now, if you want to come on and defend yourself against accusations like that, you're more than welcome to appear on our show or appear on the phone.
And bookmakers, of course, as you know, always giving out the prices, how much they need a horse to lose, all their value bets, and if you fall at the last, you go and get your money back. All these sort of schemes. They're very quick PR people to give prices and to give you the information that they want put out and how much they're standing to lose. When it comes to things like this, amazing. None of them turn up.
Absolutely.
I wonder why.
Let's get
well, I thought it was quite strong to use the terminology of a scam there. I personally would see that as bad practice, okay? They've offered the £25 free bet, but they've only accepted, as I understand it, £10 on this one single horse bet. You bet your £10 on that, you're then left with 15 quid to have a few other punts throughout the day, and that's the way it goes. Hold on. If you don't like it, you don't take the free £25 bet on, and you go to another bookmakers. That's why it's a competitive field of bookmakers.
It's an extraordinary thing that you go into a supermarket and you'll say, I'll have £10 worth of
bananas,
whatever it is, but you've got to buy carrots for £15 as well. It's an absolute
they do that. It's called a meal deal, where you've got to buy a starter, a main dessert, and you get a bottle of wine for free.
You don't have to. But if you what they should say is £10 you can have on, that's bad enough.
Yeah.
They bet £50 or £10, but they cannot possibly say you've got to have £15 on another horse. That is a scam, however it's taken on. And I'd love to hear evidence that was actually happening.
But then you go next door into ex-bookmaker, don't you?
Yeah. You do, but they have not been told you've got to back another horse with your own money for 15 quid when you're only going to 10 or
It's not good practice, I agree, but it's not a scam.
It's absolutely, a number of bookmakers have raised the minimum stake on the telephone. They've raised the stake. I mean, it was £10 with the firm mentioned. It's now 25.
Bookmakers do this.
Uncourse bookmakers as well. Yeah. If you phone up with a £25 bet and they offer you £10 of the price, they take the £10 bet. They cannot seriously
But what about
ask
the
you to do
footage that we
15.
showed in terms of you go in, you put a single bet on, and he couldn't get that on? Now, we must stress that, we don't know how often he's trying to put it on. It was a 9-2 shot, but, it's feasible, nice size bet, but he couldn't bet it on, Billy.
Well, no, I mean, this is the other thing, John, to mention. I mean, that everywhere you look in racing, all the bookmakers are saying, come to us, come to us. Here we got this fantastic offer. You can get a £5 free bet. Come to us. More than that. It varies. The minute you win, they just systematically push away the people who are making a profit. And this shop thing is nonsense.
Isn't their right to do so? I'm playing devil's advocate here. They're all in business. Why should they take your bet?
If a small bookmaker is getting turned over by a high-rolling gambler, then absolutely right, he should be able to say to this person, I don't want your business. That's absolutely fine. What the real problem here is that they don't even just close the account. This is what we call restriction of bets, As I've sort of publicly stated a few weeks ago, I couldn't get a 50p win on Man City to win the FA Cup. That's ridiculous.
Now, if a bookmaker is closing your account, is this because of the behaviour that the way you're behaving in your betting, the style of your betting? Is it because you're just too much of a good punter and you keep winning? I can't believe that, to be honest. What is it? Why? How do they judge your behaviour, and how do they judge whether they have to, close your account or not?
But any punter,
I've never had a bet rejected in my life.
But any punter should regard it as a badge of honour. I would love to have a whole list of shield up of all the bookmakers wouldn't take my bets. Unfortunately, none of them have ever wanted to close my account and stop me betting. So that's the shame on me as to what they do.
But let's be honest about it. What they do love is the Yankee, the Lucky 15s, the Goliaths. They don't like the singles, do they?
But bookmakers are not bookmakers. They're accountants.
Yeah.
But the old days of where William Hill and Joe Corral and that sort of set the firms up, they were bookmakers with their own money, taking on the punters, but it was a different age, a different world. Now it's studiously accountants. Now we had that Mick McDermott on, who was very, very good, but he was clearly, the people he was speaking on behalf of were people who were trying to get on at the early morning prices. Clearly it had gone on Betfair. A lot of them were traders who were going to sort of get a price there and trade and Betfair. And
he didn't.
But they were. But that's what he was saying. They keep, in the early morning, taking a price. They couldn't get the price because the price had gone, because it had gone on the machines. So that's what he was saying. He's bringing up other cases. And his main attack was these people that he knows who were trying to get 50, 100 quids on at a price that was no longer there.
But what I found, my experience, and maybe Tom, Billy and John can say this, we live in a competitive market where in the old days you had 3 or 4 competing against each other. Now you have 10, a dozen. Now, if there's 7 to 1 across the board on a particular horse and someone gives you 9 to 1, and this could be any bookmaker, it's when you take that 9 to 1 and it wins, it seems to be on the price issue that is also a problem. I think you have to be careful.
I think there's this little bit of probably a myth, if you like, that everyone is an arbor, everyone is trying to steal value. Some people are, and to be honest, these people that are doing that, then they probably deserve what they get. But I don't think it's that simple. You know, if the best price is 16 to 1, I find a firm at 14 to 1. It doesn't make any difference. You still get your account closed. If you're winning money, it's not about taking the best price. At the end of the day, and the other thing is, like I say, in 6 to 1, it's 6 to 1. You know,
and it's not as if you're putting £50 on even money shot each time. You're putting on a 14 to 1 shot. But you've never had the problem.
No, I've never had the problem, and therefore I don't really feel scorned by it at all. But surely you've got to appreciate that, you know, the bookies are taking the same gamble that you are, and when you talk about prices, they're taking a gamble on what price they're offering you and competing, as you say, Pete, with other bookmakers. But they're also gambling on who they even accept in terms of which punters they're going to accept. And if they notice some strange behaviour, etc., they're well within their rights to reject people's bets without a doubt.
But what I was appalled at on that BetRacingNation video there was the interrogation that people have to go through.
Like criminals.
To get a bet on. It's like the Gestapo was sort of around, and you go in there, you're doing something wicked and evil, and they're cross-examining you, and they're making it is appalling, that kind of attitude that is going. But you can't blame the people doing it, the shop managers, because if it's part of a coup and suddenly that they're taking, what did you do? Why did you allow it? So all this time we're waiting to get back to the head office for whether they can get on. But that kind of thing, wait to treat customers.
I think the way they've been treated there as well, which would be quite annoying if you're the punter there, is the fact that you've actually received no explanation, and that's essentially why we're probably still debating why people's accounts.
In one case, we saw phoning the police.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, well, that is just a sample. BetRacingNation have produced a sample, unanswerable. Are you saying this is the only twice it's ever happened?
No. How
many times, how many shops does this kind of thing happen? And the owner goes and backs his dog. Clearly, it was at Hove. I'm not sure whether it was on Sky. It was certainly on the Racing Post TV. It would have been on. So bookmakers taking a kind of bet like that on a chap's dog. Maybe it wasn't a regular in the shop. I don't think they would treat regulars in the shop. But if you're a regular in the shop, you probably aren't winning anyway because they love to have you.
And it was 9 to 2.
Especially on a Saturday. Absolute guaranteed. 8 o'clock the Racing Post comes out online, and the people are trying to get on there. So what can bookmakers do? Price puts up 100 to 8 chance, 12 to 1. It's going to be bound to be 7 or 6 to 1 chance.
The thing is, you almost don't want him to say it anymore. Otherwise, if he picks your selection.
But in fairness, what are bookmakers to do? They're advertising in the paper. You see the table. It's 12 to 1 there. Anybody tries to get on can't get on, but you can see why.
And Tom Segal is very good at it.
Well, he is quite exceptional.
And as you said, though, it's advertised at 16 to 1. You cannot get 16 to 1.
Of course you can't. But also, of course, you have to remember, why on earth, and I appeal to all people, why do people go to telephone tipsters? Will you please tell me why you spend hundreds, thousands of pounds on telephone tipsters? If I was good enough to be a telephone tipster, I'd just bet the horses myself. The trouble, you can't get on. You can get on enough and look around and everything like that, rather than all the work you have to do and the administration to be a telephone tipster. And you've got Tom Segal there, is absolutely fantastic, man.
I'm sure Pete's phone's ringing at the moment, actually, John, asking for tomorrow's.
Well, of course you are, but that shows. But in fairness to the bookmakers, and the great example of this, and we'll be coming to it later, was the Barney Curley coup, when you could get over 14,000 to 1 the price of those 4 horses very early. Nobody got those, but they were there. And the bookmakers, by their defensive action, cut it down to 17.5 to 1.
Can I ask you a question?
Their defensive qualities and their early warning system, in fairness to the bookmakers, is fantastic. Is almost as clever as the coup itself.
Let me ask you a question about this. In a way, is the Racing Post a victim of its own success, in as much that it's very good in terms of giving information that is widely available? You can watch replays now, you can study form, you can look at handicap marks, and for someone who's pretty good at studying, you can, I would imagine, pick winners, Billy.
That's a bit of nonsense, because the bookmaker can do that. If it's as simple as going through the form book or watching the videos, the bookmaker can employ people to sit and do that, and there'd be no advantage. We had
this slightly earlier. It was a race at Kempton. We were sitting there, and I said, I don't know why, but this Miami Gator, he always sticks out like a sore thumb in the racing pose. And you'll notice a punter, John, something sticks out, and it's a bit of instinct sometimes. You just get that feeling that it's going to... And, you can trawl through all the form books and watch videos, and it doesn't always correlate on the day. Of course it doesn't.
But what I'm saying is the information is more widely available now than what it was, say, 15, 20 years ago.
To everyone, not just the people with, taking the bet, the people that are making the bet as well, and,
But, I hate to sound slightly older than you, and it's humiliating.
You're not much older than Tom.
Well, to even mention it is humiliating. But in the old days, you rarely knew if a horse was a soft ground horse or top of the ground horse.
Yeah.
Now the information is out there, and they're now talking about bringing in whether they've been gelded recently or tongue-tied or had operations and all that sort of. I'm all for that. But the information now available to punters is quite extraordinary.
Betting and therefore odds compiling is arguably more it should be more accurate.
But then odds compiling it's all virtually the same. You see, it goes to there's a central group who send the prices out. They fiddle around with them one or two and make one or two.
We're running out of time on this section. Can I ask one other question? And that is, it concerns me really as a punter, or certainly on the BHA there's no punter representation. Who is out there to listen to people like that when you've got the big companies? If you've got people, who listens to them apart from shows like this?
Well, what can they do? What can anyone do? Can you go into Ladbrokes or Hills or Coral and say you've got to lay a certain amount, you've got to lay this bet, this bet? You can't tell companies, private businesses, how to run their business.
No.
The only thing that goes in the favour of the punters is competition. In the old days, 3 or 4 big bookmakers, that's all you had. Now you've got so many others wanting your business. But they only want the business, as you well know, of not the people who are betting on Betfair and Arbing and all that sort of thing, people who just average punters who study the form a bit, but will lose in the end. And that's what they want.
And some would say, Billy, that you have got options to go elsewhere.
Yeah, of course
with a number that...
Well, you have got options, yes, but, the man in the street doesn't play the exchanges. He walks into his betting shop, and the man in the street with a £10 or £25 should be able to go into a major high street bookmaker and get a bet on a reasonable price.
That is the point. That is definitely the point. And if they can't, then the person in the business needs to explain why they can't. Because without explanation, it leaves you in a dark corner where you're debating like we are, with no idea why the account's getting closed.
A minimum maximum win in a shop, like they have a maximum win, but the maximum they pay out.
If they state it.
Yeah,
quite honestly, every single day they state it, and it doesn't just pop up now and again when they decide when they please.
How much do they have? They to lose £50, £100, £1,000. What are they to have? That BetRacingNation video was fantastic because it really showed at the coalface of what punters are up against.
Yeah.
And they're up against this. Bookmakers, as I said, they're accountants. They don't want to lose. They will not take on a winning punter over any period of time. They won't do it. Why? And you could say, in being a free marketeer and believing in free enterprise and capitalism, why should they? Who would want to take on someone who was getting top prices, maybe arbing whatever he was doing or she was doing? Why should you want to take them on? They don't. So, but these awful scenes, and that was a tremendous video. It shows just what goes on and the interrogation you get. And when they threaten to call the police, that can't happen too often. We've got less police now than we've ever had, whatever it is.
Before you go rabbit on,
that's the peelers, and they're less police, and they've been called out to sort out whether somebody can get on and leave a money favourite betting.
I just want to quickly touch on another subject very quickly, and this was the horse in the week, the free runner race, Billy. Explain the ins and outs of that very quickly. 1 to 50, we could all get 1 to 2.
Well, the rule for deduction takes a percentage off winnings, not winnings and stakes. So what you've had a situation here where people have effectively had half their money as winnings and their whole stake back, and then they've basically done very, very well from the system.
But not the exchanges, very quickly.
Not in the exchange very quickly, because I don't quite know why. They should apply the Tutsel's rule 4, that's what they say. The point being, this system, obviously, looking at this case, is flawed. It's very easy to rejig the system, where you take a deduction from the stake and the winnings. It wouldn't need to cost punters anything, but you could tweak the system to stop this happening.
So even though we've had a go at the beginning of the bookmakers, they obviously lost on that.
But bookmakers always said Rule 4 is unfair to them, and mathematically it is. I know bookmakers who are saying that you should be a percentage taken out, say 33 to 1, take 3% out. 50 to 1, take 2% out. Bookmakers that's what they're trending to. But you must say they do have a case when a horse is 80 to 1 on returned, and they're going to pay out 1 to 2. There is there are very few, over 10,000 races we have, very few times does this happen. But this was a sort of a prime example. You could lump on around, say you get even money, either Last Trella or Standler. So you could have even money, either of those two, lumping on. And if you get this withdrawal, you've got it made. You see why bookmakers are howling and screaming, and they've wanted Rule 4 to be changed, and there'll be further calls for it to be changed. Not in favour of the punters, you can be sure.